Hey everyone, I hope you're all well. It's day 24, round 4 of the Body Coach plan. It's been a good day on the food front, which is a minor miracle, let me tell you. My day started off with a flooded kitchen and utility room and pantry. Not good. We had a burst pipe thanks to the freezing temperatures. So there's a test for you first thing in the morning. I had to be in Oxford today for a meeting. So to start the day like that wasn't great. I then had a bit of a wobble, trying on 5 different outfits this morning. Don't know what was wrong with me. Haven't done that for probably about 12 months, but nothing I was putting on was looking right in my head. And the only thing that kind of got me back on track was putting on my grey trousers and realising that they were looser than the last time I wore them a few weeks ago. So just goes to show that even at this stage in the journey, nearly 2 years down the line, you can still have wobbles if you let your mind play tricks on you. And then I drove to Oxford, which should take me about 2 hours in traffic. It took me 3.5. So I was late for my meeting. I had 5 people attending a meeting, so not great. But you know what? I sat in my car and said to myself, can't get there any sooner, so there is no point stressing about it. You know, there was traffic that isn't normally as bad as it was. Like, I'm not quite sure what caused it, but I couldn't do anything about it. So I could stress, or I could accept that and make plans to make the meeting start later, which is what I did. Meeting went well because I went into it with the right headspace, which could have, easily have gone differently. And I've kept my food on track, which is a minor miracle, as I say. I think, in summary, if I look back to 2-3 years ago, how I would have reacted following a day like today, it would have been to stop off at McDonald's or a garage or something like that on the way and buy lots of food, because that has become my coping mechanism for anything that's remotely stressful. I didn't do that today, so there's a win. I thought about it, which is different to where I've been in the last 12 months. So I know that, the dealing with the PTSD and really bringing all of that stuff back to the forefront of my mind is impacting. But at the moment, I'm winning, which is good. I think for those people that don't understand binge eating or bulimia or anorexia, it's really difficult for people to comprehend. It's sort of like, what's the matter with you? And I hear a lot of people say, well, I binge eat, I'll eat 5 bars of chocolate in one go now and again. I think to try and describe it, it is like this overwhelming feeling of you have to. It's like a compelling pull that you have to go and you have to get lots of food, doesn't really matter what it is, and you have to eat it where nobody can see you. And while you're eating it, you get this sort of momentary feeling of, which is pretty much immediately followed with, oh my God, I can't believe I've just done that. And then this kind of guilt spiral, which quite often leads to another binge. And it gets to the point where when you are right in the thick of it, you're waking up in the morning and the first thing you're doing is planning how you're going to make that binge happen. And then you might go through a cycle of doing that for 2 to 3 days before you let the guilt take over and decide that you are now going to starve for 2 or 3 days to make up for it. And there lies the premise of, you diet for your whole life, but you remain fat, because the starving doesn't outweigh the calorie intake from the binge eating. and therefore you never lose weight. And if you do lose weight, it's through crash dieting, which, you know, for a period of time can stop you thinking about binging, but quite often it returns, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later. So it's a real weird beast. It is very similar to, you know, an alcoholic or someone who's addicted to drugs. And it's something that is incredibly readily available because you have to eat. It's interesting looking at it through a different lens now. You know, having not done it for 20 months and feeling like I'd recovered, facing into the blip that brought back all of the traumatic stuff and kind of brought those feelings back to the fore, which immediately took me back to wanting to use that coping mechanism. But now, looking at it slightly differently, in terms of I understand it, I can unpick it, I can see the triggers, and I can start to take steps to not go down that path. And I read a really lovely poem last night, which kind of went along the premise of, I've fallen into a hole and it isn't my fault. And then the next one is, I've fallen into a hole, I knew it was there, but it isn't my fault. And then the next one is, I knew the hole was there, I've fallen into it, but it's a habit and it's my fault. And then the next one is, I saw the hole, I walked around it. And then the next one is, I walked a different path. And I feel like I'm in that third one. I fell into the hole, it's a habit. I now think I'm moving towards the fourth one, which is I can see the hole, I'm going to walk around it. And I look forward to the day where I walk a completely different path and it's never part of my life again. And on that note, I will leave you and I will speak to you all tomorrow.